Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to paint a watercolor butterfly. I am so excited about this tutorial. This is one of the things that I love adding, either detailed or a little bit less detailed, to my botanicals and to my patterns when I'm painting them. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need 2 cups of water. I have one for clean, one for dirty water, a napkin for drying my paintbrushes on. For paper, I'm using 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. Paintbrushes, I'm using Princeton's brushes sizes 8 and 2. And lastly, for paint, I'm using a combination of Winsor & Newton Series 2 and Series 3 watercolor paints. For your guys' butterfly, you guys can paint them whatever color you'd like. But if you'd like to know specifically what I'm using, I will list the colors down below. To start us off, I have drawn on my paper really faintly the outline of a butterfly. I actually just found a photo of one that I liked and copied that. If drawing is something that is intimidating to you or overwhelms you, feel free to trace it onto your paper. Otherwise, just go for it, practice those drawing skills, and look at a reference photo if it makes it easier to draw out your butterfly. So I've drawn it in pencil and I've made sure that the lines are really light and really faint. That way, as I add paint to them, the pencil lines are not going to be showing through too much. So now that our page is ready to go, we are going to jump right in by adding some paints. So for this butterfly, I have drawn out sort of a monarch-looking butterfly, but I like using different colors. So I'm gonna use a mixture of kind of orange, a burnt orange, and a pink for mine. We are going to start by painting our lighter colors onto our butterfly, and then we can add in darker as we go. So I've drawn out a pattern on my butterfly. I'm gonna go into kind of a mixture of my burnt sienna paint here and just a little bit of my pink there. And I'm just gonna start by going in and filling in the wings of the butterfly. I'm just gonna switch to my bigger paintbrush for this. So the idea with this is that we're filling in this layer. We're gonna add detail with a darker paint as we go. But that means that this base layer, we can use whatever color we'd like for our butterfly. So now that I've done that first wing, I'm gonna use a little bit of a wet on wet technique here. And I'm just gonna mix in some more dots of orange into places. Because once I add more layers, I want it to have a really neat look where the colors are different and vary throughout the butterfly. So I can actually go in as well and do the same thing with some pink. And I'm just gonna let it bleed into the paper. And then lastly, if I want, I could even dry my brush and use a little bit of a lifting technique. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing with the wing on the other side. So I'm starting with this sort of mixture of a little bit of burnt sienna and Winsor red. So as I did on the other side, you can dry your paintbrush off a bit and just lift some of that color off, just so we give a little bit more variation in our wing. And I'm just gonna go back into my left side here with some clean water and do the same thing. And now that I've done that, I can go in and I can bleed in some more of my burnt sienna, as well as this magenta here. Just give some nice variation to my wings. Now, following the exact same concept, we're gonna do the bottom 2 wings. I'm working relatively quickly just because I want to get all of my details in while the paint is still wet. I use a bit of a lifting technique. And now I'm going to go back in with my color. You can see already that as these top two wings dry, they have such a nice blend of colors, variation in depth as well. All right, so now that those are done, I can start by going in and painting the body of my butterfly. So I don't quite have the color that I want to use here, so I'm going to have to mix one together. I'll start with my brown, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of this black that I have on my palette. And I want it to be slightly cooler, so I'm going to add some blue. All right, so now that I have the color that I want, we're gonna jump right into the center of our butterfly. And because I drew this out ahead of time, I can see the general shape that I'm trying to make with my pencil lines. So I'm painting it with a dark brown, almost black color. And while it's still wet, sort of as I did with the wings, I actually want to just lift a little bit of the color off to almost make it look like it has some light shining on it. And now I can go in with the same color, and I'm continuing with my small paintbrush. For this part, you want to be really careful to just be using the very tip of your paintbrush so we can get a nice skinny line. And we're going to go ahead and paint the antennas in. Okay, so now that that's done, we can add in the detail to our butterfly wings. We're gonna take a brief pause in this tutorial because I have something to tell you guys. I am so excited to introduce my new course, From Palette to Paper, A Beginner's Guide to Watercolor. In this course, we do a deep dive into all of the foundational watercolor techniques. Then we go into depth painting florals, and after that, we combine it all into one beautiful floral masterpiece. I have a link in the description below for more information, so go check it out. So for my butterfly specifically, I'm going to mix sort of a darker brown color for this part. And I'm just going to start by outlining these shapes that I had drawn on my wings. So to start, I'm going over with my small brush the edge of this top wing here. And then I'm just slowly starting to outline those shapes that I had drawn. I really like to jump back between the left and the right sides so that I can get the same design on both sides. And it's definitely okay if it's not perfect. For this butterfly, I'm using a technique that uses a lot of the negative space. So rather than leaving white space and filling it in with the dark colors after, I fully filled in my butterfly, and now I'm painting in negative space just to get the really cool design and pattern. One of the things with using this technique is that it takes a little bit more pre-planning with how you're going to paint your design. All right, so now that I've filled in the left side, or sorry, the right side on the top, I'm gonna go ahead and try to imitate the same thing on the left side. So the reason why I like to draw it in super lightly with pencil ahead of time is because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of this next portion. And I'm really not too picky if the left and right sides look perfectly the same. Just the idea is that I'm doing the same shapes sort of throughout. So now we're going to go in and paint the bottom half of the butterfly. So for the bottom half, I'm following that same concept where whatever I do on the right side, I'm going to do on the left as well. And for this one, I'm doing a little bit more faint lines. And I'm adding that same detail along the bottom. I'm doing sort of these little dots or circles using that negative space. So the top half, I have a little bit of a darker color here, so I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom and just add a little bit more to it so that it stands out more. One of the things with these types of designs is that I find that I can keep layering and layering and layering to it to just add more and more detail. But for you guys, I'm going to leave it as this. If you guys want me to show you an even more detailed butterfly, then let me know. Otherwise, we are all done with our watercolor butterfly. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you followed along, make sure to take a photo of it, share it with me on Instagram at Alexandra Victoria Studio. I love to see what you guys are painting, so please do share. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and comment below what you'd like to learn next. We'll see you next time.